Please like and comment below and subscribe and share for more first-person encounters.
Vietnam War Reptilian Cave Encounter. In 1970 I was serving as a corporal in the US Army, deployed to South Vietnam in a region about 30 miles south of the DMZ. At the time I was second in command of a squad of soldiers. We had set up a bivouac in a jungle area that had a few steep hills. That evening my section was ordered to patrol one of the small valleys west of the encampment. We moved out led by our sergeant. Not long after entering one of the small valleys we detected movement ahead of us. It seemed to be scattered activity, so we doubted it was VC, but we weren't positive. We hunkered down for about 15 minutes, getting occasional glimpses of something moving within the trees and brush. There wasn't enough light to detect what we were observing, even though the moonlight was bright that night. After a while the activity halted, so we continued to move slowly through the valley. As we approached a sheer wall on the hill, it looked like someone or something had stacked large stones and boulders in the pass in front of us. There was also an opening in the hillside that looked like a cave entrance, approximately 5 foot high and 3 foot wide, narrowing at the top. When observing the passageway, it appeared to have been cut away by machinery. The edges were smooth with small even-spaced grooves. We were puzzled by this, because we had never seen enemy caves like this, just underground tunnels. The sergeant suggested that it may be a VC supply depot, so we started to assess how we were going to investigate the cave. About this time, things got very strange. We began to notice a putrid odor emanating from the cave entrance. The only thing I can compare it to was rotting eggs and human decay. It was so revolting that a few of the soldiers were becoming ill and started to back away into the jungle, including the sergeant. I was directing a light into the entrance in order to observe anything, but there was a haze that was impossible to see through. We had no idea what was before us. The entire squad took a position in the heavy brush approximately 150 feet from the entrance. Far enough not to be detected, but close enough to observe the cave entrance. We quietly remained there for what seemed like forever. The jungle was strangely calm, though we heard rumbling sounds coming from the distance. It was really eerie. The sergeant was sitting near me talking to himself. It was obvious that he was frightened. I was looking at the rest of the squad. Each had white eyes and scanning the area. No one was going to doze off during this patrol. After several hours, dawn was approaching, and it started to lighten up. I checked my watch. It was just before 0500 hours. Just then we noticed movement in front of the cave. A being, I first thought it was a man, moved through the entrance into the clearing in front of the cave. As it stood up from a crouch, it stood at least 7 foot high, and started to look in our direction. At that time, another similar-looking creature was moving out of the cave. They were making hellish hissing sounds and looking directly at us. The only way I can describe these beings is that they looked like upright lizards. The scaly, shiny skin was very dark, almost black. Snake-like faces with forward-set eyes that were very large. They had arms and legs like a human, but with scaly skin. I didn't notice a tail, though they wore long one-piece dark green robes along with a dark cap-like covering on their heads. I never noticed if they had anything on their feet. No one gave the order. It seemed like the entire squad opened fire at once. Every piece of vegetation between us and them was quickly sheared away. I yelled out a ceasefire order. At the same time I was looking in the direction of the cave. There was nothing there. We immediately checked our flank in case these things circled around us, but there was nothing. As we approached the cave, ready to resume action if needed, it became apparent that the beings had escaped. Most likely back into the cave. It was soon decided to set charges and close the cave entrance. When we returned to camp we all seemed to be in a daze. There was little discussion of the incident, and we were never debriefed, so I know the sergeant never filed a report. Then again, if he did, it was kept quiet by the brass.
Black-scaled reptilian humanoid seen near Canberra, Australia. Hi there. I live in the capital of Australia, Canberra. My friend witnessed something pretty intense and I was on the phone whilst it happened. So I heard it. And heard him. He is never prone to displays of hysteria, but was totally freaked out by his encounter. He was walking by the storm water drains about 100 meters from his house when he caught sight of a child-sized, 3 foot tall or so, black-scaled reptilian humanoid creature. He described it as having long fingers and bright cat eyes when they caught the light. It followed him home and climbed over the fence after him. It was studying him and not behaving particularly aggressive or hostile. It walked on 4 and 2 legs. He shooted away with an umbrella, very British of him I know, which is when I heard it make a high-pitched hiss growl and take off. We wish to make an expedition to locate and take film of the adults. But we do need help. A bunch of ill-prepared retards we are not. But questions remain. Armed or not? Night vision? Torches? EMF? Provisions? Maps of tunnels? Inform someone in case of getting lost. Fluorescent chalk markers for trail signs with black lights for picking them up. But we need to know about them. Details. Anyone in Canberra who can add a professional touch to our survival rate? Any advice on the subject would be very much appreciated. And have we forgotten anything in our equipment? Thanks. Jack.
Austrian cave encounter. I am writing to you from where I live in Gmunden, Austria. Recently I came across your story about the man who had an encounter with an alien-type creature in a cave in the United States. The story is similar to my encounter in an obscure cave here in Upper Austria. This area is known for salt mining and Salzkammergut, the salt mines of the former Habsburg Empire. I am a trained and certified geologist. I studied at the University of Salzburg and in the United States at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I have explored and documented cave systems throughout Austria, Czech Republic and Poland since 1988. In May 2011 I was in a narrow cave that a colleague had recently found. This was approximately 2 km north of Obertron on the opposite side of the descending mountain range in the foothills near the east bank of Hulsiter Sea, or lake. As I moved through the difficult passageway I started to hear voices emanating from the darkness ahead of me. I stopped to collect a few samples from the cave wall, chipping it with my pick. I moved deeper, maybe 50 meters, until I noticed the voices again. I am familiar with echoes and Doppler effect sounds in caves, but this was totally different. I stood quietly for several minutes until the voices stopped. Again I moved through the cave, almost crawling at this point. After another 40 meters I ascended into a chamber that was big enough to accommodate several people. There were 2 wide openings on the opposite side of the chamber, each looked like it has been excavated by machine. There was also an obvious rotting odor. As I examined the chamber I noticed an odd red iridescence as I passed the light over the rock floor. When I knelt down to collect a sample I again heard voices coming from one of the passageways. At this point I was terrified and started to hurry back through the narrow cave. After I squeezed back several meters I was able to turn my head just enough to look back into the dark chamber. A yellow light slowly made its way into the chamber from the left opening in the chamber. Then there were several yellow lights following the first. As the lights moved through the opening into the chamber, then back through the opening on the right I was able to see the beings. The sight sent fear throughout my body, I was actually paralyzed. The creatures were humanoid in stature, but these were not human. Each varied in height, but all looked the same. Muscular lizards that walked upright like humans. There is not a better term I can use to identify these beings. These creatures wore dark-colored full-body uniforms that extended and covered the feet. I couldn't tell the exact color of the skin, but each had a pronounced muzzle. The long tails were very prominent and swiftly swayed back and forth as they moved forward. The arms and legs were massive. I could detect the musculature through the uniforms. There were voices also, as if they were talking to each other. The voices actually sounded human, though I could not detect the language. There were possibly 20 or more of these creatures as they walked single file through the chamber and into the other opening. When I conceived it was safe to move I quickly withdrew from the cave. I think I may have been in shock because I barely remember anything that happened from that point until I reached my office. I decided to keep a private journal regarding my encounter, but I have not discussed it with anyone else. My colleague who originally found the cave told me that he has explored the cave since my encounter, but never mentions anything about the chamber, other passageways or bizarre beings. At this point in time, I am starting to doubt that I witnessed these creatures. Is it possible that I hallucinated this encounter? Or possibly experienced something from the past or the future? I am a trained professional who deals with reality, but my beliefs have been seriously shaken. I appreciate your introspect and thoughts, as well as observation by your readers. Thank you, Gregor.
The Underground Reptilian Encounter, Carthage, Missouri. This past Sunday, the 7th. A friend and I were riding two ATVs in a place called the Underground. It is a public and private storage facility in Carthage, Missouri. What makes this place such a desirable storage facility is that it is all underground, hence the name. They are constantly expanding this place, and there are miles and miles of carved out caves in there, and it goes pretty deep. This facility stores thousands and thousands of food containers, all dehydrated for the Navy. I have seen them and it is public knowledge around here. It is also a fallout shelter able to hold some 40,000 to 50,000 people. I tell you this to give some sense of the vastness of the place. I worked there as a subcontractor some 9 years ago. I helped build the office spaces up on top. I started to explore them about once a month and did so all the way until this past Sunday. However, I never went as far or as deep before either. It was fun to take the ATVs and cruise underground. No rain or weather problems, ever. We were approx 8 miles in, and I'd say maybe 500 feet deep when we took a turn down an area that was marked Naval Authoritative Zone. I remember making a comment about the Navy getting a ship down there and said that was an easy posting. The walls became more defined, as in polished or finished, and this was striking because this was supposed to be a newly blasted area. Totally backward, I would think. Still thinking nothing was wrong, we kept going. Actually increasing speed because the floor was paved now and we could go faster. We came up on an unusual painted pattern on the floor, and I thought, cool graffiti, kids have been down here, we're safe and won't get into any trouble. The road dipped down, and then it took a 90-degree turn to the left. We had no warning and we were going too fast. I knew we were going to hit the wall. But we didn't. We passed through some kind of projection of the cave sighting. Although I don't know how it was done. It was real looking. We passed into a whole new road system. This one was large and much older than where we came from. We started to smell an odor. Musty damp, growing stronger as we went deeper on smell. The lighting decreased as well, probably 60% less than the other areas. We turned on our headlights. We continued on at about 5 to 7 miles an hour for about 5 min, and we noticed it was getting cooler, which was to me, very strange. Since once inside a cave a certain distance, the temp says the same. We made a right turn and started to come up on what I thought was a rest area on the side, about 40 feet away. I thought it looked like a pair of fountains until they moved. We both stopped immediately. We were approximately 30 feet away now, and what we saw were two creatures. One was very tall, at least 7 feet, maybe more, and very powerfully built. Reddish in color, and the other was smaller, about 6 feet, but it was not red in color, but pale, like an albino, and it was not as powerfully built as the other. They looked like reptiles. Living, walking, intelligent beings, not human, not warm-blooded. Reptiles. I know it sounds crazy, but it is true. They said nothing, but I did get a strong sense from the big one. A malevolence, evil presence of some kind. My friend screamed and we turned around. A power turn. We started to go back out when my friend said, the big one was after us. I looked back and it was following us. I had the overwhelming feeling that if it caught us, that harm would come to us. We passed through the wall projection, and I looked back and saw the thing raise its arm, and it had a weapon of some sorts. It fired and hit the ATV my friend was on. The engine died and he stopped. I told him to jump on, and he did. I gunned it and then my friend said, stop. I slowed down and he said, look. I looked back and the thing had stopped at the graffiti on the cave floor road. The ATV was on its side of the graffiti symbol. It was obvious the thing would not cross the marking. I slowed more. We were now about 75 feet away. I stopped and the three of us, me, my friend and the creature reptile man thing, just looked at each other for about 15 seconds. And let me tell you, that is a long time. Then I started to leave. It stayed there waiting and not moving until we were out of sight. As soon as we cleared the cave, I got on my cell phone and called the sheriff's department. I was told that they would not come out and that underground security would handle it. Then they hung up. By law they are not to do that. We can hang up on anyone, but a government office, be it city or federal, cannot hang up on you. Anyway, I was shocked and scared and we took off across the outside of the underground over to my truck, and sure enough, underground security was waiting for us. We were told to leave, not to tell anybody about this. That if I come back, the Navy would press charges. I was also told that I had 10 min to leave or I would be taken in. What can I say, we left. It has been 3 days since this has happened and I am still shaken. I am a powerful person, 6 foot, 4 inches and 265 pounds, and I have never in my life been afraid for my life until this past Sunday. I lost one of my 2 ATVs. As far as I know, it is still down there. My friend will not talk about it, and I have not heard anything from anyone about it. I did call the sheriff and they said they never got a call from me. Well, that is my story. I have never had anything strange happen in my life, and I am very concerned about this. I can tell you this, I had an urge to kill the things I saw down there. I don't know if that is a natural reaction, as most people have a natural revulsion towards reptiles, or because of my faith and the feeling of evil I had, or what. All I know is that they are real. And I wish I could do something, anything to combat or help against these things. Take care all and thank you again for letting me write this and share this experience.
Frightening being. Hi, my name is Stephanie, and upon reading online about reptilian beings visiting people, I summoned up my courage to speak out about my experience 7 years ago. In 2005 I lived in Colchester, England with my long-term partner and was working at a local cafe where I meet and worked with people who first introduced me to the beliefs surrounding the Illuminati. When I fell pregnant, we decided to move to Australia, where strange things started to happen in my sleep. The first one I remember is waking up not being able to move or talk. It was extremely frightening, and although it happened on several occasions, I was hesitant to tell my partner as he thought I was crazy. On the contrary, I felt I mentally and spiritually strong, which helped me fight to overcome the forces that were controlling me every time. I also used to see tiny green lights in the corners of my room during the night. One night I was woken to find what I can only describe as a reptile-like creature/being standing over me on 2 legs. It had a frill around his neck that was in a threatened-like extension, very muscular, and a tail. He was making a hissing noise I felt that was certainly not friendly, looking almost through me when our eyes meet, and as previous experiences I was not able to move or speak, and felt paralyzed yet wide awake. In absolute terror I shut my eyes and opened them, and it was gone. I was beside myself and was in fear of his return. It wasn't the last time I awoke to him, he also came to me in a dream. In my dream I was sitting at my friend's square table talking with her, and I knew he was there. In my dream I remember as my friend was talking I was being coaxed away and taken by him. It felt like an out-of-body experience as I could see myself in my dream at the table with her. I knew I was being taken. I managed with all of my spirit to fight the strength he had on me, and I remember feeling like I wasn't ready to go and that he'd be back when I was, because after that it didn't return and hasn't. After I had my baby I remember seeing lights, the same green ones I saw in my room in her cot at night when she woke for feeding. I don't know why this happened to me or why I got a frill neck, but I know I'm not alone and I know I'm not crazy. Take care, Stephanie.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.